Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. You're live, large and in charge on SABC3. It is Expresso. And yes, guess what? It is almost July, which means that halfway mark of the year is almost behind us. And it all comes and goes so fast that you're left thinking to yourself, with a great deal of stress, by the way, have you even achieved half of those goals you set out to achieve at the beginning of the year? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose?
Well, we don't want to stress you out. So hopefully after today's health segment, we'll understand a little bit better how the dreaded mid-year stress works. And of course, that's why we have Dr. Darren Green with us this morning. And if you have a question, we're asking you the question, are you suffering from mid-year stress? Well, give us a call. Our lines are open. That number is 021 430 9881. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning to you.
What is it about mid-year stress that, stresses people out?
The speed bump. I think there are quite a few factors involved. I think it's the fact that obviously it's the end of the business financial year, the tax year. Everyone waits for that with anticipation.
Got to be submitting now.
Correct. People start the New Year's revolution with goals that they set out to achieve by a certain time. It's the 6-month mark. A lot of people have that 6-month goal, that year goal. And now it's a time of reflection as to, have I achieved them? Have I got there? Have I made it? That, along with, obviously, as I've mentioned, a lot of the financial stresses, the unexpected things that come along, from grieving in your family to illness, that all piles on as we move into a dark time of the year, which is obviously winter, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that affects your mood and your stress levels as well. So quite a few factors contributing to it.
But how much of this is actually based more on a psychological basis, where you can change certain things in your mind? And yes, you say, maybe I haven't achieved that six-pack that I wanted right now, but there's still another whole half of a year to come. So you can change certain things. How much of it is psychologically based?
You can, but what we've come to realize with technology and with recent discoveries in terms of the functional MRI of the brain is that you can't separate the psychological from the physiological, from the social. So all three, when it comes to wellness and true health, the synchronization between that is quite crucial. So what you think can affect your hormone profile. What you feel can affect inflammation in the body. And now we can demonstrate it. It's no longer a thumb suck. We can actually show that people that suffer from certain symptoms and moods at different times of the year affect certain parts of the brain. We can measure the chemical hormones, the neurotransmitters, for example, in seasonal affective disorder. And we can prove these things. So very interesting to note that, they are certainly linked, the psychological and the physiological.
Okay, well, we'll have more with Dr. Darren Green. I'm quite interested to know, does this season, it being winter, also play a role? But are you suffering from mid-year stress? Give us a call. That number is 021 430 9881. Oh, see, I love that. That's what I would do. That's my cure for mid-year de-stressing. Yes. So we'll be continuing our conversation with Dr. Darren Green. We're asking you the question, do you suffer from mid-year stress? Earlier, Doctor, we had a call from Neil during that segment asking that he's a university student, feeling very stressed at university and suffering from panic attacks. What would you recommend Neil can do?
Sure. So you get stress that is good. You get stress that leads to performance. We all need a little bit of stress to get us going and moving sometimes. The question is whether the proportion of stress you're experiencing is realistic for the issue at hand. So in an exam situation for students, if you start studying late and have to cram last minute, it can get a bit overwhelming. That's your stress is realistic because you're seeing how much time have I got left and how many hours are left in the day, and the work, the volume is just so great. That's appropriate stress. The panic attacks, however, are not great. You feel like there's an impending sense of doom and that there's no exit and that you're actually going to die at the time. You can't breathe, you start hyperventilating, pins and needles in the hands and feet, etc. So what would help him in this case is obviously things like breathing techniques. So when you do find yourself a bit flustered, you need to actually try and silence yourself, slow yourself down, concentrate by taking deep breaths in and out first. And then obviously reiterating that you're not at a danger of losing your life. You're going to be okay. Immaterial of the outcome of the exam, you're going to actually survive. And you've got to reinforce that. So very difficult in exam situations, as you know, but certainly there's a degree of stress that your body can cope with as it's pumping out adrenaline and cortisol and all those wonderful hormones. But obviously, if it's appropriate for the event, we need to manage the risk factors going forward by better preparation, time is sleep, etc., etc. All that plays a role. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Darren Green, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, if you was a student at Stellenbosch, it was okay. Because one of the 3 things, if you're a Marty student, you moet 'n vakkie sleep. Yeah, not that I'm encouraging it, but it's okay.
Let's slip right into this ad break. We'll have more with Dr. Darren Green after the break, including taking on Zoe's question about winter and how that plays a role in our stress levels. I'm just saying, Zoe, get a cuddle buddy. Welcome back. We're live, large and in charge on your Feel Good Breakfast show. And yes, it's the middle of the year where we all are struggling with that mid-year stress. But the best news ever is that food can also help that stress, out. And a little bit later on, we'll be getting into the kitchen to talk about that. Dr. Darren Green, although, is here to talk to us about that. And we were saying during the ad break that bad stress, right? Let's say you're getting called into the office to speak to the boss.
The nervous
and now
stress, yeah.
Palms are sweating, knees weak, arms are heavy, there's vomit on your sweater already.
8 Mile.
Listen, it doesn't help because it doesn't change what is actually supposed to happen. So maybe it might be worth your while to actually go to like an anti-stress class because long-term stress can be very, very dangerous for you.
For sure. And when it comes to anxiety and stress, the technique, one of the most favorable techniques that actually are not dependent on taking medication for your anxiety is called CBT. Some really good specialists in Cape Town, the CBT Center, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, where they look at the way you interpret a challenge or a stressful factor, and they actually go and analyze your cognitions around that rather, where you can work at changing and adjusting the way you think about different stresses. A spider, for example, if you have a phobia for spiders, you're always going to have a phobia for spiders, but your realistic check that spider is not going to kill you necessarily, unless it's a tarantula, of course, can be adjusted. Your realistic outcome of it. So you accept it, you deal with it, and you change your cognitions around it to keep functioning. Some people are paralyzed by panic attacks and stress before they go into bed, where they underperform, they freeze up. Other people just are nervous for that initial first bit, and then they just break forward. Even artists that perform on stage. Then suddenly, when they manage to get over that little initial hump,
yes,
they are free, and then they actually perform quite well. So it's dependent on your personality, it's dependent on your mood, your genes. It's also dependent on where you are in your life in terms of your health, in terms of sleeping well, etc. So quite a few things to take into consideration, but certainly managing your stress involves the cognition to a large degree. And there are wonderful techniques in CBT.
Yeah, it's all on the mind. Well, Dr. Darren Green, I've been dying to know this question, the answer to this question. Does the seasons play a role? I personally find myself a little bit less positive about life if I've had too many grey days.
Yes. I'm thinking of the poor people up in England and the UK and why they drink so much gin, for example, as well. But Twilight, the light that affects in the movie Twilight, for example, same story. Seasonal affective disorder is your exposure to light and the seasons affect directly the amount of serotonin and the neurotransmitters in the brain. So it's real. It's something that does exist where some people are prone to having slumps in their mood during the winter time. If you think about it, it's dark outside. The activity levels generally go down. It's cold, it's wet. These times of the year, people are more sedentary. They're not exercising as much in the sunlight. They're not getting enough vitamin D. Social interaction might also go down in the winter months. And another thing is, I wonder what happens to baby consumption, baby creation and conception during the winter months versus the summer months. People spend a lot more time indoors.
All right, well, we'll come back with Dr. Darren Green very shortly, talking about all the different ways that stress affects our lives and especially on how we can work on certain ways to decrease that stress. And as I said earlier on, one of them is food. I know if however stressed I am, just put some chicken wings in front of me. We are A for away. We're going to go to the kitchen, but I don't think we're making chicken wings this time.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
All right, listen, we're back with Dr. Green. We're talking stress, especially right now in the mid-year. And I was asking Dr. Green about the manifestation of stress in our body. Some people speak of getting a knot in their stomach. For me, it feels like there's warm, pressured air that pushes down on my diaphragm, and I need to breathe that way in order to let it go. Do people experience it differently?
When you're under stress or experiencing stress, you have what's called a hyperventilation syndrome. So you find you're breathing faster and shallower. It's subconscious. So you're breathing off too much carbon dioxide. And if you're doing it quite rapidly, you actually get dizzy, you get pins and needles in the hands and feet. And it alters, obviously, the pH of your blood.
Okay. Well, Dr. Darren Green, we have a phone call from Maria in Stellenbosch. Good morning.
Kan u Afrikaans praat?
Ja, wat is jou vraag of
My vraag, ek het 'n klein dogtertjie, Kusa, ouma grootjie, wat altyd goed geslaap het, maar nou hier onlangs het sy 'n vreeslike tandekres in die nag en maar sy is nou graad 3. En dit pla my so dat sy gisteraan so gekres het op haar tande en gekou het in die nag, want sy slaap by my, laat ek vanoggend het ons verslaap en ek het nooit geslaap nie. En as 'n ouma wat na kyk, en sy is al 83, maar niks probleme met haar nie, né?
Oh,
Dit is nou net die tande wat vir haar so pla, want ek nou in die nag. Sy klaar nie van tandpyn of ietsie, maar dit kneus verskriklik in die nag in hierdie jaar in.
I can imagine that could be quite stressful for Oma Maria there.
Knarses.
Yeah.
So
Het is nog een knarses.
at night time, obviously, a lot of children and adults grind their teeth. So you find that's got to do with tension. It can even be an underlying form of anxiety sometimes, even at that age, or a dream where they're enacting a dream and they bite down on the teeth. To protect your teeth, obviously, you can see a dentist who develops a plate for you to sleep with.
Almost like a mouth guard.
Yes, like a mouth guard. It's very similar, and that protects the teeth so you don't have damage. But it's difficult when you're listening to it or sleeping next to someone that has it. Often dealing with the stress and looking at potential reasons why. In a 3 or 4-year-old, obviously, you want to look at what they're watching on TV. You want to look at what's happened in the past day or two or in that week in terms of play, therapy, and activities to see if there is any underlying exposure to things that could have made them a bit more highly strung. Any drastic changes in the environment, where they're sleeping, etc. All that can add to stress. But certainly a very common condition of grinding the teeth. And to protect the teeth, you often have to use a guard.
Dr. Green, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I must say, I feel like I'm a little less stressed right now after
knowing all
that
of
chat.
this.
And thank you so much to all of our callers for your contributions to our segment. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these.
Only you can